Hello, welcome to another edition of Ducks Talk. I'm your host, Jack Esco, and today on the show we'll be talking about the disrespect that the NHL gives the Ducks. We're talking about the game yesterday for the Ducks, between the Ducks and the Kings, see what happened there. And we're also going to be talking about previewing the Ducks and the Stars, see what's going to happen in that series, and we're finally going to talk about the whole playoff spectrum and who's going to win it all and why. So let's get started. So, the disrespect from the NHL on the Ducks is just totally disrespectful and totally wrong. This team is number one in the Western Conference, clinched the Western Conference yesterday. We'll get to that in a moment. But they're the number one team in the Western Conference. They have the best record in the Western Conference, but they only get a couple games on NBC Sports Network, where most of the games on cable network gets broadcast on national television. It's a joke. They're the best team in the Western Conference, and they get treated like this. They get treated like chopped liver. On the other hand, you have the LA Kings, who won there several times because they're the hot team that just won the Stanley Cup for the West Coast. It's a joke. We killed the Kings this year in the season series. We should get more games in the NBC Sports Network or NBC. They'll never put us on NBC unless we're in the Stanley Cup, because they don't like it when they bring down their ratings. NBC hates the Ducks. You know why? Because they bring down the ratings. They don't care that if they play good hockey. They care about the ratings. So they would love a Blackhawks, Maple Leafs, a Blackhawks, Bruins, a Blackhawks. See a trend here? Original six. They don't care about good play. Well, they partly care, but they mostly care about ratings. And the original six drives the ratings. Rangers, Bruins, Maple Leafs, Red Wings, Blackhawks. See a trend here? Alright? They also like those second tier teams that came around in the 60s and the 70s, like the Flyers, the Capitals, the Penguins. Those teams. They'll show a lot of those teams. It also doesn't help to have a superstar phenom like Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. You know, like the Capitals. 60s and 70s. Alexander Ovechkin, that doesn't help either. That does also help. But when you have all those teams, you get played a lot more. But for the Ducks, you have superstars. You have Corey Perry. You have Ryan Getzlaf. You have a good defense. You have all those players, but yet you get treated like chopped liver, and you have only 4 games on NBC Sports Network. It's a joke. I went to look, and I saw 4 prime games that the Ducks could have been on NBC Sports Network very easily. All 4 of these games in a row could have been on there. From the March 14th to the 20th, all these games could have been on there. Every single one of them. You had the Avalanche on the 14th, the Kings on the 15th, you had the Capitals on the 18th, and you had the Sharks on the 20th. All 4 of those games could have been on there. All 4 of them. But not a single one was on there. Not one. And why is that? I have no idea. Because they don't like... Oh, I'll tell you why. Because they don't like to lower their ratings. To sacrifice good play for good ratings. And they are definitely good play. Another thing I don't like is when the national broadcasters, when they have the Ducks, they don't talk about the other players that helped this team win. They'll just like, and the Perry and Getzlaf are the cogs that run this thing. Yeah, you're right, they are the cogs, but they're not the only thing that makes this team run. You got players helping out like Pavelski and Bonino and Fowler and Smith Pelly, who scored a goal yesterday. So we'll talk about that just coming up. And Edom and all those great players that help out in small roles that don't get enough praise for it when they get the national spotlight. They just talk about, and Perry and Getzlaf are out of this world. You're right, they are. But other players should be getting some notoriety too. And like Cagliano and Frederick Anderson and John Gibson. Those are the players that should be getting some love, and not just the star players who normally get a lot of the notoriety when they're on NBC Sports Network, and they will be getting a lot of it if they do get to the Stanley Cup playoffs. They'll just be talking about that, and not a whole lot. But you'll see the national broadcasters talk about all the little things that help the Blackhawks win, the little things that help the Penguins win, because they see them more, because they know them more. The only thing that the guys can go off, the national broadcasters, Doc Emmerich and Eddie Olczyk, is go off of what they know, and which is very little, of the Anaheim Ducks. Oh, you got Perry, you got Getzlaf, you got Bonino and Cogs. That's it. No, you got a stellar defense. You got Lovejoy blocking every time, blocking shots. You got Saku Koivu and Solani kind of have a down year. I take that back. You have 3 players who they can't stop talking about: Solani, Perry, and Getzlaf. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to hear all the haters. Oh, that's blasphemy. All right. I love Solani. I love him. All right. He's a great player. One of the greatest Ducks of all time. He is the greatest Duck of all time. However, it just got to stop. It just got to stop. This love affair for Teemu Solani, when he hasn't been this good this year, he's only scored 9 goals. And that's not great. If he was doing a lot better, I would probably understand all the love affair for him this year. But he's not doing that good. He's only scoring 9 goals. Now, I understand he's old. All right? But to get all this notoriety, and I understand he's one of the greatest players to ever play this game. However, when you're starting to talk about one of the best teams in the Western Conference, and one of your starting players to talk about is Teemu Solani, who doesn't play on back-to-backs, who's an older player, who hasn't done as well as he has in other seasons, is talked about first and foremost in the opening preview of a game. I don't think that's right. I really don't. No, I don't think that's right. Even though this is his swan song season, I don't think that's right to talk about him first and foremost in the game preview. That just means you don't have anything to talk about when it comes to the other players on the team. If you're talking about Teemu Solani, you should be talking about Cogliano, you should be talking about Koivu, you should be talking about Ben Lovejoy doing an amazing job on the defensive end, and Hampus Lindholm and all those players. You shouldn't be starting your preview about Solani, even though he is an all-time legend and an all-time great. The season he's having right now is not an all-time legend season. It's just not. So, yes, he is a Hall of Famer, and yes, he is the greatest Duck of all time. But you shouldn't just start your argument or your preview of just saying, and look out for Solani in this game. The teams haven't had to look out for Solani. They've had to look out for Getzlaf and Bonino and Perry this whole season. Solani hasn't really been a big threat for them or for any team this year. Moving onward to the Ducks and the Kings preview, or the Ducks and the Kings review of yesterday's game. The Ducks and the Kings played last night, and the Ducks won 4-3 in a shootout. Devontae Smith-Pelly made the game-winning goal in the shootout, and the Ducks won 1-0 in a shootout as they scored in the 4th round. The Ducks' goals came from Devontae Smith-Pelly, and they came from Nick Bonino and Matthew Bolesky, with those 3 goals coming in regulation. The goals coming from Los Angeles came from 2 from Anze Kopitar and 1 from Dustin Brown. Now, the Ducks have pretty much owned the Kings this whole season, but yet the Kings still get more airtime on NBC Sports Network because they're the hot team that won in the West Coast recently. All the celebrities come, and I love seeing the Kings fans and their celebrities get all disappointed when they get beat in the Staples Center. I really love it when the Ducks do it too. Just really disappointed. Those bandwagon celebrity fans who say they love the Kings. No, you don't. You just hopped on that bandwagon when they won a couple years ago. Oh, I've been a Kings fan since when? Since when? Since they won the Stanley Cup? Oh yeah, what a fan. What a fan that is. Yeah. You see all these celebrities pop up when just after they've won the Stanley Cup. What a joke. So, they've pretty much owned the Kings this year, and rightfully so. They are a better team, and I think that will show in this playoffs, as the Kings will face a very tough competitor in the Sharks, and I don't think they'll get past that one. I really don't. I don't see them advancing to the second round. I see them losing to the Sharks, and I see the Ducks going really far. And transferring on to our next segment, we're going to be talking about the preview of the Ducks and their matchup against the Stars in the first round of the playoffs. I like them in this matchup. They only really have one star on the Stars team, and that's Tyler Seguin, who they got from a trade with Boston. And he's their leading point scorer. He's their leading goal scorer with 84 points and 37 goals. He's their star. He is their franchise player. And after that, it really trails down. Their goals really go down like that after Seguin. It just goes flat. The production goes down real big after Seguin, and it just plummets after that. Their goal stopping is average with Kerry Lichten. He's a 2.4 GGA, goals against average. I like them in that matchup against Frederik Andersen or John Gibson, whoever is starting in goal. It dare not be Jonas Hiller. He's playing terrible at goal. If you look at the matchup as coaches, you have Lindsey Hunter, longtime coach of the Buffalo Sabres, and you have Bruce Boudreau, who's been doing an amazing job for the Anaheim Ducks. I do like that matchup for the Anaheim Ducks. They've been doing really well with Bruce Boudreau. Now with the defense, I love the Ducks. The Ducks defense has been really well. They have Cam Fowler back, who just came back a couple games ago. He's been doing really well, and that was huge for the Ducks. To have him back before the regular season ended was absolutely huge. Now this was the difference between the Ducks season last year and the Ducks season this year. The Ducks season last year, they limped into the playoffs and went to the second seed. And the team who they faced, the Red Wings, they steamrolled to that playoffs. The regular season, the end of the regular was like their playoffs, and they just had to make a beeline to the playoffs to even make it to the playoffs. And they did. They beat the Ducks in a 7-game series because they didn't really click near the end of the season. And that's why I'm worrying about the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks, you can't just say, oh man, we're going to get all of our star players back in the playoffs and we're going to be fine. Really? You're just going to flip a switch and you're going to be on? Yeah, the Ducks tried doing that last year, and what happened to them? And I know you can say, oh, well, the Blackhawks are more experienced and this and that. Well, when you come back from an injury, you're not just, I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's beat the Blues. Whoa! The Blues. This isn't the Predators here. This isn't the frickin' Sabres here. This is your rival. You've had trouble beating this season. Do you really see them having an easy series with the Blues? Just clicking it on like that? That was one of the worst series to just click it on. Because you're playing the Blues, and you've trailed off. You've really died down this end of the season, which is not what you should be doing. You should be ramping it up. Just getting it up. Getting it up. Because if you're not getting it up, then you're just going down. What the Ducks did last year. And that's what I see the Blackhawks doing this year. Now, you can fault them for some of the injuries that the Blackhawks have had this year. They've had Patrick Sharp and Jonathan Thames and all those players going out. But in the end, it's going to be tough. I see them winning that series. It's going to be a drag-em-out brawl. Two great teams. It's going to be a really close series, but I like the St. Louis Blues in that series. I'll get hate mail and I'll get this and that. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a hater. I'm not a hater. I just see how I see it. And I see the Blues, they don't have any injuries. They're playing terrible to end the season. The Blackhawks are playing terrible to end the season. So something's got to give. And I like the Blues just because they have a little better players and a lot better goaltending. A lot better goaltending. I saw that game yesterday. The Blackhawks and the Predators. The Blackhawks gave up 7 goals against the Predators. That's inexcusable. So, like I said, I like the St. Louis Blues to win in 7 games. Now, for my final pick, my final thing before we end this show and go to closing, I like to pick the Anaheim Ducks to win the whole thing in 7 games against the Boston Bruins. Let it be said, let it be done. I will be marking my correction and marking everything that I've said correct in a couple of weeks. Alright? So, this has been real fun. I will see you next Sunday at 1:30 exactly as we will talk about each games of the playoffs and what will be going on. We'll be doing some playoff review next week as the playoffs will be getting into full throttle next week. We'll also be talking about a little bit of what will be happening next round as we shift into that. We'll also be talking about some free agents going on the board next year, who will be a good commodity for the Ducks, and who should they pick up, who should they get rid of. We'll also go into that. All right. If you want to look at this video, you can go on YouTube. You can go on my Facebook page. You can go on to Google+. Follow me. So, you can search on the YouTube page, Ducks Talk, Jack Esco, and you will find me there. This has been real good. This is Jack signing off until next week at Sunday at 1:30. This has been good. Peace and go Ducks.